Hi everyone, thank you for joining in today. And today we're going to be talking about my wireframe for the OMSCS class within human-computer interactions. And what we are looking at on the screen is effectively a translation application which leverages augmented reality and is also augmented by generative AI. Within this wireframe, we have three scenarios of three different modes, effectively a simple version, an intermediate version, and an expert level user for the application. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in and walk through the application itself. All right. Let me start that over from the beginning. All right, so just a bit of context about what we're going to be doing here, right? So the briefing of what we're trying to do, the situation is you're meeting up with a friend or a relative that you've never met before, and neither of you speak the same language. So your task is effectively figure out a way to communicate about the weather with them, and you'll be doing this by using an AR interface application to communicate. And as a result, you will know what the weather will be like tomorrow. Again, just wanted to call this out as we work through. There is a note. Effectively, if you see black text, this is kind of just a descriptive function that I've used to describe the actions as we walk through them. It's not necessarily a part of the UI. You'll see more in a bit. All right, so you're speaking to someone right now, right? They have no idea what you're saying. So you go ahead and take out your cell phone and you load up your app for the first time. So the phone that you're using effectively leverages the camera within your phone, and you hold it up, and it should be able to help in your translation. So let's say by just going through the novice user mode, this is kind of what this looks like, right? So I'm speaking to this person right now. They still can't understand what I'm saying. And naturally, they say back, I can't understand you. Also, as we work through, if you see any of these fonts with the carets, these are effectively string variables, which can be leveraged when the solution does go to further development. So the phone is effectively picking up their language, and it is transcribing it in their native language, right? Then there's a bit of translation that happens, and you should be able to hear an audio output into either your headset or directly from your phone in your own language, right? And then it says below, in your language, now you're speaking back to this person, right? And it's just writing it out exactly word for word of what you're saying. And then it ultimately outputs the direct one-to-one mapping in the second language, and that audio is then played back to that person. They communicate, vice versa, and then the audio comes back in through your microphone. So that's the first case scenario. Let's go ahead and walk through some of the other features within the application. So rather than moving forward into the application, let's just go ahead and play around with the menu, right? So within the menu, we have language settings, right? We might be able to change the font size within subtitle settings, modify it so that it's more visible for different types of users. You can also download the language itself. This way you get higher performance, specifically in low internet availability areas. And also it has an auto language detect feature. So if you download the languages themselves, it should be able to distinguish on different languages. So let's go ahead and just collapse that and go into the other settings. So what we have here, you can go ahead and look at conversation history. So previous conversations should be listed out here in almost like a transcript. You can modify the sound settings, device settings as well. For storage settings, you can more or less define how much of that storage you want to be stored locally or put it up in some kind of secure cloud. There's also an option to pair a Bluetooth headset so that you can hand out a headset while communicating with that other person. Or you can even hook up your own Bluetooth headset. You might be in a noisy area, so you both might want to use headsets. Last but not least, there's an owner's manual option that talks more about some of the other features. So as we move forward, we're going to go ahead and just take a look at the apprentice profile, right? This is a little bit more in depth than the one that I've already showed you. So what you're looking at here on the screen, we have this little diagram that indicates, different context that you can provide into the system specific to different types of emotions or specific intentions based on emotional outcomes. So what you're doing here is you're effectively speaking to that person, right? Let's go ahead and click. I've said something to them. And now that's been directly transcribed onto the screen below for reference. So what you're going to do now is you're going to want to give the AI some context on what you want the output to look like. So each one of these colors represents something different. The yellow effectively represents creativity. The red represents assertiveness. Green is agreeableness, and blue is factual. So each time I click through one of these, it's actually providing like a desired transcript or output, right? So if we go ahead and just move forward, let's say I want to do something, do something creative. That's the one that I'm going to go ahead and pick and submit. And you can either submit by clicking on the language directly, the translation directly, or if you're trying to learn the language and practice it yourself, you can click the speak button and just read off the page. Throughout any of the process too, like if you want to try to resubmit a translation, you can click the back arrow button, just try to speak again, and then pick the context and move forward, right? So, I guess the person did not like the response that was provided for assertiveness, right? So let's move forward, and now she's going to communicate back to us in her language. It's going to be translated back to us, and the audio will come through our headset. Now, you can do this as many times as you really want to. Just keep the conversation moving over and over and over, right? And eventually, what we're going to want to do is just go back to the menu. We can test out the expert profile, right? So the expert profile is a build upon from the apprentice profile, which provides a few more extra features like observations. Should be able to read the person's face and tell you what kind of emotional state they're in. And then there's also notes, right? Just based on the context of the conversation, the LLM will effectively take notes and present on the screen what is being talked about, right? So what it says here is what you're going to want to do is speak in your own native language. And what you see below is your language is taken and written down into words. Oh, so it happens to be that you're talking about the weather, right? And it looks like their face is still neutral. Let's go ahead and, pick a different kind of emotional response. And effectively, the LLM is generating unique responses for each one of the different categories, right? So you can jump between these as speaking. Let's say, this time we want to be factual about the weather. So we would then go ahead and, again, these are variables, so these would actually be printed out strings giving you suggestions of things to say. You can either read them out directly and while holding down this button, or you can go ahead and actually just click one and the speaker from your phone or the Bluetooth headset will take care of the work for you. So let's go ahead and just click the one that we like. Oh, it looks like the person's surprised. And, I just wanted to point this out. I didn't say this earlier in the last presentation, but, these emojis are just to show reactions. You're not actually going to have these emojis covering the person's face. It's just a little bit easier to build out the wireframe just by demonstrating, simple emojis as opposed to finding a new picture of the person's face. Again, all of these faces that were used for this presentation were used based on generative AI imaging. This is not actually a real person. Just wanted to call that out. That this person's likeness is not a real person. So as you can see here, they were surprised by the response. It actually would type up the full response that was provided, and it would type out the exact same thing in the foreign language so that you can learn the language as you're actually using the application. So now they're going to talk back to you in that language, and then it's also going to be presented in your language and also read back to you. So let's say, you want to do this a few more times, just play around with the different features, learn a little bit more, and let's say, you're done. So this is the end of the sequence of the demo. So you've had your first conversation in AR and have discussed the weather, and there's an option to start over again and play with it as much as you need to until you're familiar with the tool. All right. Feel free to follow up with me if you have any other questions. Thanks. Bye.